My name's Yvonne, and I'm going to tell you how I went from being this little girl in a tutu to being this girl in a tutu in the world-famous Blackpool Tower Circus alongside Cairoli. You could say I had showbiz in my blood. My granddad was called Harry Osborne, and he was a talented pianist. He used to play for the silent movies and taught me to play from the age of 7. He met and married my nana before the war, and they went on to have a daughter, my mum, Jean. Mum was a lovely singer and dancer and could play piano too, but she never used her talents except to sing me to sleep every night until I was about 6. I started dance classes aged 2 and took part in my first concert that same year in aid of the Sunshine Home for Blind Babies. I attended Hope Sherwood's dancing school at this time, and yet my first footsteps into real live performance were all of my own making. It's quite an amusing story really, and I'm sure it wouldn't happen today, but my cheeky entrance into showbiz still makes me smile. By the time I was 7, my grandparents looked after me a lot during the long summer holidays, as my parents were busy in the family laundry. My granddad worked at Fairyland on the promenade, and my nana was manageress of the cafe on the South Pier. I could be found in either of these places, but my nana put me to work with a tray hung round my neck, and I would walk up and down the pier selling ices. All by myself one day, I wandered up the pier with my tray and decided to venture into the Rainbow Theatre. Inside, a guy called Joe Crosby was comparing a Pierrot show and talent contest. Here he is with Jimmy Clitheroe. Well, I strolled in with my tray, entered the contest. I think I sang the Nun's Chorus or something, and I won. I won a tennis racket. In fact, I entered every day that week and always won. The winner was determined by audience applause. By the end of the week, I had 6 tennis rackets. The director got a bit fed up of this, so he asked me if I'd like to appear as a guest artist every day instead of entering the contest. I was happy to oblige. It beat selling ice creams. It did make me laugh, and the audience too, when he would ask me on stage every day if I was married. From then on, showbiz had grabbed me. I had 1 or 2 offers from agents, which may or may not have made me some huge child star. But alas, I continued in my education and found myself working for a solicitor on the front reception. It was quite varied and interesting, but I still wasn't sure what to do next. I decided to go to college, and enrolled at Blackpool Technical College as it was then. After about a year, I was doing well in the exams when one day I noticed in the local paper that there were auditions about to be held for Tower Circusettes, and it got my full attention. I was now 18, but once again that cheeky little 7-year-old came out in me, and once again I auditioned without telling my family. I just couldn't resist this opportunity. After all, every year when I was a child I had been taken to the Tower Circus, and it was a huge treat, mainly because I loved seeing the animals, and also because I was mesmerised by the circus showgirls, the circusettes, who would waft past the audience in a perfumed haze of sequins and feathers. I wanted to be like them, and this audition was my chance to do just that. There were dozens of girls at the audition, and they all looked really glam. I suppose I also look glam now I think back, but they only wanted 6 girls. We had to parade up and down and learn a short dance routine. Over the next few weeks, the short list started getting shorter, and my name was still on it. Eventually, I received a contract, and it was only then that I told my parents. Luckily, once again, they supported me in my decision and all was fine. I was so excited, I probably would have worked for nothing, it was so good. The best time ever. What with all the fittings for costumes and all that makeup, it was so glamorous. We used to think we were the bee's knees. All the costumes were beautiful, made by Alex Shanks, a London-based company. When we were measured up for costumes, we went to a space at the back of the Winter Gardens, a room full of costumes, sequins, feathers, etc. The costume ladies measured everything, even the finger to elbow. It was amazing to be finally there in the circus ring. You couldn't see much of the audience, and we were encouraged not to make eye contact. The water finales were especially wonderful. So full of colour, quite a spectacle. My 2 seasons at the Tower were delightful. There was a glorious mix of nationalities and accents and personalities amongst the artists. I didn't know any of the other girls. but I soon got to know them. It's amazing how you bond when you're running around with no clothes on. The costumes we wore were individually made to our specific shapes, and we wore hair pieces and huge false eyelashes. We were not allowed any hair on our faces. It had to be pulled back, and we had to smile constantly. We wore satin-heeled court shoes, which were dyed to match our costumes, and, of course, fishnet tights. We had to wash our tights after every performance. We had a dresser, Auntie Barbara, as she was affectionately known, who supervised our every move in the dressing room. Our choreographer was Mary Cregan, or, as we called her, Miss Mary. She was a fair but no-nonsense sort of a woman. Our dressing room was behind the circus ring out of the way, next to the horses. You never saw anybody really once the show started. We were in our dressing room, changing costumes, and then dashing to get on for the next act. That season there was an accident. It was a swing act. It was a matinee when this accident, quite horrific, during which the girl smashed her face and knocked out many of her teeth. We thought, what will happen now for tonight? Then when the evening performance came, there she was! It really brought home that showbiz saying, the show must go on. In my second season, which was 1970, I was lucky enough to be chosen to be in Charlie Cairoli's slapstick entree. As Charlie was world famous, this was indeed an honour, and it was also extra money which Charlie paid me himself. I was to perform a routine as a ballerina, complete with tutu, and then after a whole load of nonsense, I ended up with Charlie throwing a bucket of water at my bum twice a day as I bent forwards in a balletic movement. This sent the capacity audiences wild with laughter, and I would run off in a soggy strop. It was the highlight of the act, seeing the glamorous ballerina getting soaked in such an undignified fashion. The finale followed this soaking, and I had no time to get to the dressing room to dry myself and change. The only way round this was to change in the elephant quarters, which was nearer the ring entrance. I would race round, dripping wet, and trying to undo my tutu into the waiting arms and towel of Auntie Barbara. There I was, over 300 times, starkers, in an elephant house under the Blackpool Tower. How bizarre! You can't be shy in show business. 1970 was the first year that young Charlie was in the act, so we were kind of learning together. It was always great fun to be working with Paul Connor, who was the white-faced clown, little Jimmy, and, of course, Charlie. Normally we got paid weekly from a little office down in the aquarium, but for my extra work in his act, Charlie paid me separately from his own pocket. Sometimes he forgot, so Violet, Charlie's wife, would take it from her own purse and give it to me. Norman Barrett was ringmaster during my time at the circus. Everyone respected him. You wanted to do your best for him. If you made a mistake, he'd let you know. He started his budgie act while I was there. We had a few perks as circusettes. We'd be asked to do special performances. One of the most bizarre was when we were all asked to bounce in full costume in a line on space hoppers through the Winter Gardens for some promotional thing. Probably the most undignified display ever. But we were also asked to attend other more glamorous events, thank goodness. I made many friends during my time there, and the girls all got on great. We never had a cross word, and one of the girls, Susan, is still in touch, and we meet up when she comes to town as she lives in Bath now. I've only been to the Tower Circus a few times since 1970, but I get a tear in my eye each time, and I swear I can still smell the animals. During my second season at the Tower, I met my future husband, Clive Kean. He was visiting the show primarily to see David Rosaire, who was presenting his dog act, David Rosaire and his Perky Peaks. David set myself and Clive up for a date, and the rest is history. Clive was the eldest child of Audrey and Albert Kean. Audrey had been a dancer, and Albert was a well-respected clown and animal trainer. Circus was his life, as he came from the Kean circus dynasty in Belgium. He could train anything, including pigs, doing it all with kindness and reward, and appeared at the Tower in 1940 during the Easter season presenting Adele's Elephants. Clive loved the circus every bit as much as his dad, and performed as a clown and an escapologist, as well as presenting his plate spinning act. We acquired a caravan from Zena, mother of Joan Rosaire, who had a wonderful act with Goldie the Wonder Horse. We lived in this caravan for around 7 years, with no electricity or running water, just gas mantles and a Cala gas cooker. At this time I had branched out on my own as a club and cabaret singer. It was a lonely sort of life compared to the vibrancy and bustle of the circus, but I stuck at it until we bought a house and I had my son Adam in 1983. Nowadays I continue to perform in local musicals and plays when I can. I'm now in 2 choirs, a gospel one called One Voice and a classical one called Preston Orpheus Choir. In 2010 I got married for the second time. His name is Pete Fielding and he is a musician playing guitar and bass. Being with Pete keeps me involved with the music scene, especially in the band Night Train with whom he plays. To sum up, I can only say I've had a heck of a ride and it's not over yet.